Hello, my name is Saini. I'm the President and Vice Chancellor of Dalhousie University, and you're watching The Deep Dive. In this episode of The Deep Dive, I speak with Troy Ryan. Troy is the head coach of Dalhousie Tigers women's hockey team, as well as the current head coach of Hockey Canada's national women's hockey team. Troy has just returned from leading the national women's team to a gold medal victory at the Beijing Olympics. Please join me in welcoming our next guest, Troy Ryan. Troy, let me start by saying congratulations. What a joy to be sitting with what I regard as the hockey royalty of Canada. What a journey for you. You ever since you got involved with women's hockey in Canada, you've had this sort of a Midas touch, and it kind of culminated with, 2 consecutive wins last year at the World Championships, gold there, and now the big one, the Olympic gold. Tell me, how do you feel right now about all of that?
Well, thank you, first and foremost. I appreciate it. Not sure about the Midas touch. I think I'd like to give credit to the women on the team for that. They were incredible through both experiences, both championships. Personally, I think the biggest thing right now is I don't even know if it's fully set in yet. Just being back for a short period of time. But the one thing that I have anticipated is as I meet with friends and I meet with family and I get to see the impact that those events probably had on those, I think ultimately that's what makes it most special for me. And that's what I'm enjoying most about being home now for a couple of days, just meeting some people and seeing the impact it potentially had on them.
Yeah. So now this is not just 2 ordinary golds. These are 2 golds in 2 different, peak tournaments in the middle of a pandemic. So tell us, what was it like to play at the Olympics and the World Championships level in these pandemic conditions?
Yeah, it's been interesting. One of the things early on in the pandemic, I remember having a conversation with our coaching staff. We were looking for ways that we were going to approach coaching a national team through a pandemic. And I remember seeing an NBA coach's quote, and his quote was just, they wanted to win the weight. And that was sort of an approach that we took with it. We knew that things weren't going to be normal through the pandemic, but we wanted to make sure we optimized the time we did have with the athletes. So we wanted to make connections as much as we could, try to establish some trust with our athletes and our coaching staff. And we just used technology to do that. Spend a lot of time getting to know each other a little bit better, a lot of team building, a lot of team bonding. But we also learned or used that time to watch a lot of video and try to make little tweaks to our game. So I think one of the biggest things is we probably connected better together as a group through the pandemic, and then the use of technology really made it an opportunity for us to be successful.
Mm-hmm. How did the absence of spectators, at least live spectators, impact the experience?
Yeah. It did. It didn't affect the on-ice performance a whole lot. I think the biggest thing is not having friends and family there to enjoy those moments with. But I think the World Championship was far enough in the pandemic that this group of athletes were just excited to have the opportunity to finally compete. And then obviously having that success and seeing the aftermath of the success at Worlds, it made the Olympics feel somewhat normal to not have a ton of spectators there. The amount of media that was there at the Olympic Games made it quite special as well. So although we're not able to share directly with friends and family, the group of athletes and staff were able to share it through media. Mm.
So let's shift to you now for a moment. And when I see you, I see an inspired, motivated person who is kind of an all-in kind of a person, but in a very gentle, quiet way, which is Troy Ryan. Mm-hmm. Tell me, what is it that drives you to do what you do? And perhaps a little bit more about your own personal journey that brought you to this point of 2 golds in 2 years.
Yeah, it's probably a tough question to answer. I think when I look back at sort of my own personal journey, a lot of it probably just stems from the impact that other people had in my life, whether it was my teachers growing up or my coaches that I had. I think they probably at some point early on in my life saw something, saw some potential, saw some work ethic in me, and probably took a little extra time to invest in me. I think that sort of connection that I was able to make with some influential people in my life kind of sparked a desire for me to be that same influence in other people's lives. So my whole coaching career, to be honest, I've treated every event or every team or every group I've worked with like it was the Olympic Games. It was the most important thing to me in the world at that point. So when I did get the opportunities to be at the Olympic Games, it felt somewhat comfortable to me. And I think that's the way I grew up. The coaches and the teachers that I had treated me special and took extra time. So I owe that to the people that I get to impact.
You said something very important, that everything mattered to you as if this was Olympics. That reminds me of one of my early mentors in my younger life who said to me once, do everything as if this is the only thing on which your reputation depends. Golden words. So now, you've had inspiration from others who have mentored you and believed in you. And you are paying that forward now. And particularly my focus is on how you're paying it forward as the head coach of Dalhousie women's hockey. Now you are also involved way beyond Dalhousie at this, the highest level of international competition. So you're busy there. Particularly past 18 months, you've been really, really busy doing that. And yet you're building Dalhousie hockey as well as the head coach. And you're doing much of that through your assistant coaches. Yeah. Tell me, how do you go about that, essentially leading remotely to build hockey to that highest level here within our own leagues for Dalhousie?
Yeah, I think last year, starting off my position at Dalhousie was very unique. Obviously, you're in the middle of a pandemic and you're trying to make the most of a real difficult situation. And it does go back to similar experiences with the national team. Is early on, you got a group of young student athletes coming in and you want to build relationships with them. You want to get to know them. You want to show them who you are as a person, but also what's important to you as a coach and as a leader. And I think that was how I kind of spent that first year, was just doing work, showing them that there is, nothing was too big or too small for me to try to do as a coach for that group. And then as we transitioned to me spending some more time with the national team, I also built some relationships with my assistant coaches, Kiefer House and Savannah Newton, and through that pandemic. And then as you transition to the year where I'm away, a lot of it was just having trust in them as well, being there to communicate with my coaches, but also to communicate with the athletes when they need me. But it was really in that year when I was with them, it was establishing the trust, showing them some things that were really important to me as a leader and as a coach, and then just supporting them through their journey.
So Troy, it's just fantastic how you are coaching the coaches, so to speak, even by being, while you're away, coaching our international hockey teams. There's another person like you here at Dalhousie, and her name is Cindy Tai. As you know, Cindy is the head coach of our women's soccer team, where she's taken our national under-20 women's soccer team to the qualifying games for the World Cup. And when I think of you, I think of Cindy, I ask myself, what is it so special about Dalhousie? What have we done to deserve coaches of your international caliber to also be coaching our own Dalhousie Tiger teams? Tell me, what is it about Dalhousie that brings people of your caliber to this place?
Well, first of all, it's great to just be in the same conversation as someone like Cindy Tai. I've known Cindy for a number of years, and the one thing I can say about Cindy is she's just an incredible human being. She does things the right way. She does things for the right reason, and has a great connection with her athletes. Cindy was one of the first people that I contacted to find out more about Dalhousie, and just that connection that I had with Cindy and that Cindy had with me was special, and there was trust already established there. As far as Dalhousie goes, I know for me, my connection to Dalhousie, it goes way back to my childhood. And to be honest, I think I had a bit of a window into Dalhousie through their sports camps. I had an opportunity to go to hockey school here. As I got older, I worked at the hockey school. I actually worked at the library for a little while as I was trying to, manage adolescence and pay for some of myself. So I think that was the biggest thing for me is I had a little window into what Dalhousie potentially was all about. So I understood a little bit about the community, and it just made it a nice, easy transition for me. Obviously, Dalhousie is bigger than any coach or any sports team. So to have the opportunity to work at a place like Dalhousie is special. Special for myself and special for Cindy Tai as well.
Well, we're fortunate to have you, and that is pretty special that you and Cindy are both at Dalhousie. This is a big deal for Dalhousie. I want you to know that.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk about the women who were there on ice and brought these 2 golds, and the latest one being Olympics. You've used the word trust, and that tells me that trust means a lot to you. When the women speak about you, and I've been watching their interviews and reading about them and so on, they speak about a person who coached by letting them do what they were best at. They speak very highly of you. But the focus is here, letting them be who they are, being their best. And I see there as an opportunity for sport to be a vehicle for personality and leadership development in young women. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. How important is women's sport in building those leadership skills that, then these women will go on to be something other than hockey players at some point? And how instrumental is hockey in developing that woman of the future?
Yeah. I think it's incredibly important. I think sport, just like many other aspects of life, can be sort of the vehicle that someone chooses to have as a platform to be a leader. The group of women that I had the opportunity most recently to coach, they're incredible. And to work for someone like myself to have the opportunity to work with high-performing athletes like this group of women was special for me. Trust is huge for me, but I also think it's huge for the athletes. They need to trust that you're doing what you can as a leader to set them up for success in their careers. I look back at early on in my career, there was probably a point where I worried more about my own development and climbing the ladder in the coaching fields. And as soon as I shifted my thinking to be more concerned about what my athletes' goals were and helping them achieve what they wanted to achieve, they ended up taking care of me in my career. So I know the impact that trust can have in the coach-athlete relationship. As far as the women involved using hockey to be great leaders, I think it's a special opportunity. I think one thing that coaches have to do or could do a better job of is actually putting your leaders in positions to be leaders. A lot of times in the sport of hockey, we maybe select the best player and we put a C on their jersey and we call them a leader, but then never put them in areas that they can lead. Both with Hockey Canada and with Dalhousie, the leadership groups are very important to me as a coach and my leadership style. And I think my job is to put them in situations where they can succeed as a leader. And sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes it's just having simple conversations with them and getting their thoughts. I truly believe in whether it's at the national team level or Dalhousie, I probably have more to learn from each one of them than I can ever teach all of them. So collaborating with them, pulling them into the conversation to have conversations with them about team success and about leadership is vital to both team success. And both of them did an incredible job.
Troy, that's inspiring. And now I want to come back to talking about the place where all of this happens. You're aware that we are about to break ground on a new ice arena and an event center for Dalhousie. It's going to be a large facility, and it will create a new and exciting home for Dalhousie Tigers. How do you view that as a transformative step, if that's what it is, in the development of hockey, both for men and women here at Dalhousie?
I think it's an incredible step forward. It's such an exciting time to just be part of Dalhousie and be part of the women's program. And I do think a center like that is it's bigger than hockey. It can, I think from all conversations that I've had about the development of it, it's not only about our hockey team. I think it can be a huge focal point for the Dalhousie community, for south end of Halifax, for Halifax in general. And I look back to sort of my original or my first connection with Dalhousie. It came through being provided a little window into Dalhousie. And I think sometimes a center like this, whether you're going through the grassroots of hockey or through high performance hockey, it's opening the doors of Dalhousie through a center like that. And I think that's one of the bigger things when I look at that center, what I think it potentially could do for the women's and men's hockey program as well as Dalhousie. But then when I look down closer to just our program, I think this group of women deserve a home to call their own, to come in, feel comfortable, have a place where they can train, where they can develop as leaders, but also study, just a nice, safe place. So many things are about the environment that you can be part of. Part of that environment is the physical environment, but part of it is the emotional side of things. And I think this just gives them an opportunity to have a place they can call home.
Troy, what a pleasure to sit down like this with you and talk about your life, your role as a hockey coach, and the aspirations that you have for our women. But before we finish, let me say congratulations again on these back-to-back victories in two of the peak tournaments in the world, the World Championship and then the Olympic Championship. And of course, what lies ahead for our women in the 2026 Olympics and in number of tournaments that are going to come before that. So good luck with all of that, and we're looking forward to more goals. All the best, and congratulations again.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be home and back working with the Dalhousie team, and very excited about what the future holds for both Dalhousie Tigers and Hockey Canada as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Deep Dive. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. Until then, I'm Saini, and this has been The Deep Dive.